Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session focuses on sociolinguistics and oral literature across the globe. I hope by the end of this session you would be able to understand the significance of the examination of oral literature across the globe from sociolinguistic perspective. Well, if I define oral literature, it is a broad term that is used and that may include ritual texts, curative chants, epic poems, musical genres, folk tales, songs, myths, spells, legends, proverbs, riddles, tongue twisters, word games, recitations, and historical narratives. So, if you look at this at the screen, you would find that there is a huge variety that is covered under this term. So, when it comes to research on this particular area, Ugandan scholar Pio Zirimo introduced the term orature, which is actually a portmanteau term, I would call, a combination of oral literature. First part of the term oral and the last part of literature, a term orature is created. However, it is not very frequently used today. The term oral literature is sometimes interchangeably used with other terms as well. For example, folklore. However, it usually has a broader focus than, folklore. It forms a generally more fundamental component of a culture of a society. It provides insights into how does a society operate. For many people around the world where history and traditions are still conveyed more through speech than in writing, the transmission of oral literature from one generation to the next generation is considered to be something very, very significant. The main feature of this oral tradition of literature is that it is not written, though it may be later on recorded sometimes, some parts of it as, in the written form. But generally, when it is produced, it is in the oral form and it is shifted to the next generations in the oral form. Very often, local languages act as vehicles for the transmission of unique forms of cultural knowledge through this oral literature. Most of the oral literature that we find around the world is in local languages, in vernaculars, or in dialects. Some cultures exhibit, some, composed performances alongside, the recitation of this literature, for example. So, not only, the words are transmitted to the next culture, but the performances are shared from one generation to the other as well. For example, like many Scottish and Irish ballads are love songs in Scottish and Irish language when they are used, that have been brought to Canada, and later on we find them, being specifically, presented as oral performances, with enactment. Since oral literature comes through language, of course, it reflects folk wisdom, popular beliefs, cultural values, and the social system of the people from where, it comes, it originates. As far as the study of oral literature is concerned, sociolinguistic perspective provides insights into how does it operate. For example, how does it operate in terms of the thoughts of people, what they believe in, what they appreciate, and, how they have certain attitudes. Here I am sharing a quick example from the rich African oral tradition, of using oral literature. There are examples of African proverbs as well. In different forms, African literature exists. The significance of the performance in oral literature goes beyond a mere matter of, defining it as something oral. If I share an example, please look at the example on the screen. This is a dirge, and this, if you read it, Amago, won't you look at my face? When you are absent, we ask of you. You have been away long. Your children are waiting for you. So, In this particular example that has been recorded and that is actually performed, what is happening? It actually involves the singing of this by a female. And, as she is singing for the father of her children, who has died, who has left, the tone of the voice, the pitch, etc., it involves the emotional situation of a funeral. The beauty of the voice and the rhythm of the voice adds to the meaning-making process of this oral tradition. Her sobs, the pauses that she takes, her facial expressions, everything contributes towards the totality, of this, expression in oral literature. Different movements that she uses, they show the sincerity of her grief. So, oral literature in many cultures, such as in African culture, is accompanied by certain kinds of performance as well. And, it provides insights into the local cultures and the local ways of living.